other principal officers here present, honorable members, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to be here today on behalf of the resident coordinator and the UN system in Nigeria to pay this courtesy call to the Honorable Mr. Speaker with a purpose that's very simple, because we all have a collective interest, and if I may also add, responsibility to say no to the devastating occurrences of gender-based violence and harmful practices that are being reported every day in this country. Gender-based violence is a horrifying reality, especially in emergency settings. This includes conflict-related settings, as we have witnessed for nearly 11 years in the northeast and other parts of Nigeria. But sadly, also under health emergencies, as we have experienced in this era of COVID-19, where we have seen a steep increase, a spike, getting us to a place where we call the gender-based violence for the shadow pandemic. Gender-based violence is a human rights violation. It's a violation of the rights of women and girls in particular, but we must also remember boys and men can also be exposed to gender-based violence. It is a great concern for all of us because it has devastating long-term impacts on the health and psychosocial and economic well-being of the survivors, but also of their families, communities, and indeed of the nation as a whole. So I do want to take this moment to congratulate the government of Nigeria for all the efforts that have been made to address this increase, namely the setting up of the sex offenders register, the establishment of a state sexual violence response team and centers, and also of the recent declaration of gender-based violence as a state of emergency in Nigeria. Having a conducive environment is a particularly important factor, and the 2015 VAB law is one of the instruments. But I would also like to congratulate the federal government under the auspices of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs undertaking the current review of the National Gender-Based Violence Strategy, which is supported by UNFPA. Mr. Speaker, let me stop and especially commend the passage of the Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Institutions Bill in the Senate 2 weeks ago. It is currently awaiting passage by the lower house. We have all the confidence based on your great leadership and foresight that there would be no doubt a speedy passage of the bill by the House of Representatives so that it can be promptly submitted to the President for assent. Mr. Speaker, education for the girl child is a key strategy for addressing gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, and early and forced marriage. With the Sexual Harassment Bill, young women and their families will have renewed confidence to invest in tertiary level of education for their daughters. Let me reiterate the commitment of the UN system in Nigeria to support the laudable efforts being made in Nigeria. As a system, we have supported the provision of essential gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health services in mainly, but not limited to, the northeast of Nigeria, restoring the dignity of thousands of women and girls, providing the much-needed psychosocial support in safe spaces, and providing them with hope for continued living. Through the support of donors, such as the European Union, the donors on the call to action on gender-based violence in emergencies. I also on Monday flagged off the second cohort 2-week course in which an innovative partnership with the American University of Nigeria aims to build a capacity of local actors to adequately respond to gender-based violence in emergencies. This is done in line with the localization agenda and as a sustainable method of building capacity to improve gender-based violence programming in the Northeast and beyond throughout Nigeria. The more recent and current European Union and United Nations Spotlight Initiative is indeed a global partnership. In Nigeria, it is in its second year, and is a flagship program that was launched by the UN General Secretary and the EU High Representative in New York to support the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. It is complementing the efforts in humanitarian settings by extending the services for gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health services in development in 5 states: Ebonyi, Lagos, Sokoto, Cross River, Adamawa, and here in FCT. As part of that sustainability plan, the Spotlight Initiative is hereby taking advantage of this auspicious gathering to formally advocate for a separate budget line for gender-based violence to be included in the next appropriation bill. We all know that donor support can come and go, but with a budget line committed by Nigeria and a dedicated platform to ensure the coordination of concerted efforts and accountability of the release of the funds, such as at the Interministerial Gender-Based Violence Committee and the Gender-Based Violence Subsector Humanitarian Platforms. So on that last note, Mr. Speaker, we are also currently working on the concept to further articulate your ask for the partnership of the Spotlight Initiative in organizing an engagement for the State Assembly speakers with religious leaders in the country, aiming to address the bottlenecks that are delaying the passage of the child rights law and the violence against persons prohibition law in the remaining states. So, Mr. Speakers, we as the UN system have also engaged with the Governors Forum, where the governors committed to domestication of the 2 laws which punish violence against women and children across all 36 states. That's the VAB Act and the Child Rights Act. It is setting up a sex offenders register in each of the 36 states across Nigeria. And it's the civil society working with the civil society organizations to address and expand on innovative strategies to address the gender-based violence pandemic in Nigeria. So I would like to end by saying that we, the United Nations system, stand by you and all of Nigeria to declare zero tolerance to gender-based violence and harmful practices, and aiming to end it now in Nigeria.
And we agree that sexual and gender-based violence is the world's longest-running pandemic. And I think, and we all agree, that may be the time to put an end to it. Since with this program, we applaud, and we've been observing, and we applaud all the initiatives that were described here before, of the government and also of this House. And what I propose to do is a very brief sort of introduction of what Spotlight is. It's been said by your own people, but also already in the first speech. We, the European Union, we give a very high importance to these issues. And on many occasions, the ambassador, our ambassador, European Union ambassador, has had the opportunity to raise the profile of the issue. The Global Spotlight Initiative is the largest initiative of this kind ever worldwide. It will, the European Union has allocated 500 million euros, which in Naira is 250 billion, which is a tidy sum. It is a multi-year partnership, as it was said already as well, between us and the United Nations that aims by 2030 to have eliminated all forms of violence against women and girls. This, if it does happen, which we expect it will be a huge step on the way to gender equality. We know that Spotlight is a flagship initiative for Nigeria, as it is for us, and hence the availability of the funds, which for Nigeria, for the time being, is 25 million euros, which is 12.5 billion naira. We intend with these resources to help eradicate this scourge, and also to provide the, let's say, the seed money, so that we can work together, the authorities, the United Nations, civil society, and ourselves, in order to do so. We need to address the root causes of this violence, and I think this is from the technical people whom I've been talking to. That is the basic principle that must guide us. We need also, following that, to guarantee access to justice, without discrimination. And we also need to ensure access to quality service for the survivors, and not just quality service for the survivors, but on a timely fashion. For this to happen, we would need to mobilize ourselves as gender champions, and we look forward, we, the European Union delegation, with all our support and resources, to sustain these engagements and incite all the parties to do the same together in the initiative.
My intervention is perhaps to make the point that the fight against gender-based violence is a very big one. It has so many dimensions, and I will take critical steps to look at the different dimensions, perhaps one at a time, even though the sequencing has to be very fast. There is one particular dimension that is a burning one, it's a very significant one, and has to do with sexual harassment of women and girls in our tertiary institutions. As United Nations and UN Women in front of this, we have been working with our Women Civil Society Coalition to bring this to the fore, and we've had considerable partnership with different stakeholders, including recently the Senate. We are proud that the bill to prevent, prohibit, and redress sexual harassment of students in tertiary educational institutions and for matters concerned therewith in 2020 were passed by the Senate. It is now in front of you in the House, Mr. Speaker, that you pass this into law so that this country, at all the different levels of its society, will take action towards that. Our appeal today, as it was made by the earlier speaker, is to take a very speedy action, and we have no doubt by your act, giving your demonstration of a continued commitment to ending violence against women and girls in this country, and in your capacity as one of the chief lawmakers in Nigeria. We also want to mention the fact that traditional leaders are important stakeholders in this fight, and therefore our engagement, reinforced by your support and your colleagues in the House, will go a long way to ending violence against women and girls in the different form. And to that end, we are planning a virtual roundtable conference with traditional leaders, and we brought you an invitation to give a keynote address on that particular occasion.
Well, thank you very much. The leader of the House, Chief Whip, and my very esteemed and several of my colleagues here today, several chairmen of relevant committees and members of relevant committees, our guests, the UN and EU delegation under the Spotlight Initiative, you're very welcome to the House of Representatives. Let me say from Jump Street that the well-being of a woman, I have always believed, is the well-being of a nation. We cannot underplay the importance of women in any society or in any nation. This is why we have taken in the National Assembly, in the House of Representatives, particularly the issue of gender-based violence as perhaps one of the more serious issues that we're facing and confronting head-on in the Ninth Assembly. Incidentally, on Saturday, a couple of days from now, we will be launching, unfolding our new legislative agenda post-COVID. We had a legislative agenda that we launched last year, but because of the advent of COVID, we have had to update and revise. And I'm featuring prominently in that agenda is this issue. So you're welcome to attend at the Congress Hall at the Hilton on Saturday, 9 o'clock, if you have the chance to be available. For us to achieve maximum result in terms of eradication of this problem, I think we should look at it and look at it perhaps almost even scientifically. One, I've often defined it as a pandemic. And I define it as such, or I compare it, or say it's a pandemic because of the very definition of what a pandemic is. A pandemic is a disease that ravages the whole world. Let's just put it in straight terms. The issue of sexual-based violence, or rape, if you want to be more specific, is something that is permeated. It's not isolated to Nigeria, but we're in Nigeria now, want to deal with it in Nigeria. But it's world over, number one. Number two, a lot of it is based, I believe, has to do with your mental state. So if we accept these two notions, that one, it's a pandemic and we should deal with it as such, the same way we're dealing with the coronavirus right now, the way we're giving it a frontal attack, we're going to get somewhere. Two, if we accept the fact that many of these guys, for want of a better word, that are involved in sexual-based violence and rape are probably not all there mentally. That's why I said scientifically. Then we'll also be looking at all the measures to deal with the problem. Does it have to be all punitive? Or does it have to be curative? Do we cure the problem where you have situations where, because if you have somebody who is, even saying it, turns my stomach, who rapes a 3-year-old or a 3-month-old, he obviously cannot be all there. So sending him to jail does not even cure the problem, if it's a mental problem. There are those who basically are just perhaps perverted one way or the other. But there are those who also have what you call in legal terms depraved minds. And that's a mental illness. So I think in dealing with this disease, and if we accept that it's a disease, we should look at it holistically and in all its ramifications. For us in the House of Representatives, the issue of rape, which a lot of people don't understand, a woman who's raped and who's not that strong, even strong women who experiences this kind of violence, sometimes you've taken away her life. So while she may be physically present, she's actually, for all intents and purposes, dead. So we're giving it all the seriousness. So you can even consider it at the level of murder. And that's how far I want to stretch it. Because if you do not give something, you can call it dramatic, you can call it whatever it is, but if you don't give it that seriousness, the same seriousness as you give first-degree murder, because if you're taking somebody's life away, it's not just necessarily physically. You can take somebody's life away emotionally. And if we don't deal with it in that, from that prism, we might just be scratching the surface, the problem on the surface. So that's how we have taken it in the House of Representatives. We devoted a whole day to debating this problem, and our members went as far. They were far-reaching proposals, and that's how just to emphasize how serious we took it. People talked about genital mutilation or castration. People talked about life imprisonment. People talked about death sentence because of the gravity with which we see this problem. But in doing that, we must also identify that in places like Nigeria, there are socio-cultural and structural problems that we must also handle very carefully. For some it's cultural, some it's religious, for some it's structural. But sometimes I've said oftentimes that those barriers are there, but I also believe that we can break down those barriers. Because no matter your religion, no matter your culture, there's some things that are universal. There are lines you just don't cross. There's no religion that will tell you that you can take advantage sexually or abuse a 3-year-old or a 10-year-old. There's no culture, there's no religion. So let's begin from there, and then we begin to pluck away bit by bit. You talked about the Senate bill. I can assure you that even though the House is going away on Thursday, tomorrow, for our long vacation, as soon as we come back, I will call for the transmission of the Senate bill. We'll look at it, probably and hopefully concur without adjustment. If we can even stiffen whatever is in there, we will do that. But we can be assured that the House of Representatives will very speedily concur with that bill upon resumption. Of course, the issue of funding. There's no way you can, like I said, it's a pandemic. We're dealing with coronavirus, we're dealing with a lot of money. And there's no way you can confront a disease such as this without funding. And hopefully in September, towards the end of September, I believe that the executive will send the budget to the National Assembly. And this is a one-line item that we will all be looking out for. I will make sure, and you can be sure that the women here will look at that budget with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that proper, adequate funding is for this particular issue is part of the budget. The women have been very, very proactive on the floor of the House, but I did something very interesting when we had that debate. I more or less shut them out of the debate. They all wanted to contribute. But I didn't want to make, and I say this again with all seriousness here, I don't want, and I'm glad that lots of men here with you, I don't want this debate to be about women. Even though it's gender focused, I don't want it to be about women. I want it, and I've said it over and over again, and that's why during the debate, I made sure it was the men that advanced the points. Let the men fight that fight and fight your cause for you. And it becomes something that we will all own and take ownership of. That this is something. It's about women, but it's not about women. It's about humanity. It's about humanity, and that's the way we intend to approach it. On the issue of domestication of the violence against persons, the 2015 Act and the Child Rights Act of 2003. This has done quite a bit to sensitize the states. We had a conference with all the speakers about a month ago, thereabouts. And a lot of work is going on in that regard. The chairman of the conference of the speakers of the Northeast is from Bauchi State. I think Abubakar. He did promise at that conference that they will domesticate it in the act in Bauchi, and I'm glad to report that that has been done. and he's also sensitizing his colleagues in the north to do the same. I have written to them, intend to write to them again, and to give them a little nudge and push towards the domestication of those two acts. And I'm sure that with continuous pressure, that also will be done in most of the states of Nigeria. So there are lots of needles to thread, and we will not be found wanting. As far as the House is concerned, this is something we're championing. We're working with CSOs, we're working with NGOs, we still met, I think it was just two weeks ago, the group led by the First Lady of Kaduna State. They were here. We're working in partnership with them. And we'll just continue to push until we get to where we're trying to get to. The sexual harassment bill, the sexual harassment of students, that obviously is a no-no. But on a lighter note, there's also the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace. I don't know if you're pushing for that. Are you? Yeah. Okay, if you're pushing for sexual harassment in the workplace, you're going to have to do a lot of work. I don't know, I hear you snigger, but the reason why I say so, there's a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace, but we're going to have to get the definition very right. And that's where cultures differ from culture. You know, it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all bill in that particular case. Because I see my colleagues, my female colleagues, Honorable Linda, anytime I say, oh, Linda, I like your outfit. You look very nice today. All innocuous and very innocent. So if we use that same standard or threshold that is used in America and the rest of them, I'm going to be in trouble. Everybody is going to be in trouble. So whilst I support the issue of sexual harassment in the workplace, we have to look at what is the tradition. Now, we used to paying compliments in Nigeria. Is that what we do as people? So I look forward to seeing, it's that definition section that's going to be something we need to work closely with. So we know what bar not to cross, what line rather not to cross. So I think I must commend you for the work you've been doing, that you continue to do, your collaboration with us. We look forward to a more sustained partnership, because this thing is probably, again, like I said, because it's some of it borders on mental illness, it's not going to go away just like that. So it has to be sustained. It has to be sustained. And so we look forward to a continued relationship. And I'm sure together we can deal with this problem that seems to have consumed us all. So I think I've covered all the grounds. There's a lot more. You have my special assistant on gender is here. I'm sure you know her very well, Fatima. So this office is open to you. We want to work with you.